Welcome dear students. This is the unit 3rd, lecture 5th of your course Electagron 311 Agricultural Waste Management in the 5th semester of BSc Agriculture. The lecture title is Bioconservation of Biological Waste. Here in this lecture, first we will see about bioconservation. Actually, bioconservation is a different topic. Bioconservation is basically not the waste management. Bioconservation is a broad topic. If we manage biodegradable waste properly, it serves the purpose of bioconservation. So how it helps in, so how the management of biodegradable waste will help in the bioconservation, this aspect will be studied in today's lecture. So in today's lecture I will cover the following points. First, I will cover what is bioconservation, because I am telling you that bioconservation is a broad aspect, it is broad subject. So bioconservation first we should understand. Then in short we will also understand that what are the methodologies through which we do the bioconservation. One more terminology comes in the picture, that is bioconversion. Even we are studying bioconversion in last 10 lectures, since last 10 lectures probably. So what is bioconservation, and one more part of bioconservation and one more line of agriculture waste management, or that we will study in the next lecture, which is also related to the bioconversion. So waste management hierarchy, that will also be covered in this lecture. I will tell you how the waste is managed through which hierarchy, which option should be preferred and which option should not be preferred. But if not preferred, it doesn't mean we should not follow. Yes, we need to follow that, because we don't have any other option. Bioconservation strategy. So when we come to know that how the waste should be managed, because we till now we have already understood that what is the correct method of waste management and what is the incorrect or faulty method of waste management, what are the impacts of faulty method of waste management, what are the impact of correct method of waste management. So what should be our strategy, that with a graph we will just understand, and lastly we will come to know that what are the benefits of waste management. So these points will be covered in today's lecture. So first we should understand bioconservation. Bioconservation, conserving the biodiversity. So there is a biodiversity on the earth at a global level. Lot of plants, lot of trees, lot of genus and species of the plants are available, lot of birds, animals and their species are available, lot of microbes are available, and there is a ecosystem. We have a temperature and humidity and so many things, which creates an ecosystem where this diversity can flourish. We are living in this world and our lifestyle is harming the ecosystem, and consequently it is harming the biodiversity also. So it is a new subject where we should think about our lifestyle, so that our ecosystem and our biodiversity should not be lost. So we have developed some methods to conserve this biodiversity. So bioconservation is the protection of biodiversity. So the protection of biodiversity at a global level, which starts from local level, then expand to the regional level, and ultimately it should have the consequence on the global level, and it should have the consequence on the global community. It should also benefit the ecosystem, and it should also benefit the culture. Culture doesn't mean our culture. Culture means the relation of human with animals, relation of human with plants, relation of animals with plants. So these are the cultures which is developed in the globally in our sphere, in our earth. This culture, this ecosystem, and the whole community, whole global community should be conserved. The whole biodiversity of the earth should be conserved, should be protected. So this methodology is known as bioconservation. So three types of biodiversities are available. Actually, biodiversity, if you see, we have a lot of the biodiversity. And even if we come to the history, in past lot of biodiversities were present, but some species are lost nowadays. So this is because of our faulty management. We come to know that these species were very beneficial, but today even no genes of that species is available, so that we cannot take the benefit. So the lot of biodiversity on our earth, it can be categorized only in three categories. One is genetic biodiversity, second is species biodiversity, and third is community biodiversity or ecosystem diversity. So these all three type of biodiversity should be conserved. Then this conservation of biodiversity means the protection of global biodiversity can be achieved, and so that the bioconservation is achieved. So first I told you it is a methodology to conserve or to protect the global biodiversity, which starts from local level, expand regionally and globally. Next definition is that bioconservation is the branch of science. It is the study of the science of the in which the nature of the plant or the nature of the earth biodiversity is to be studied, and the nature of the biodiversity study of this the objective of the study is to protect them. So to protect the species, to protect their habitats, and to protect the ecosystem. So if we want to protect the biology of the earth, definitely we should know the nature of that biological system. So this branch of science is studying that nature with the aim to protect them. So this is in all bioconservation. So here we are seeing that bioconservation is a broad aspect. It applies globally. It applies on plant also. It applies on human also, as well as on environment. Because environment has the impact on plant and human on both, or plant and animal on both. Environment has the impact, so it applies on the environment, that is the ecosystem. So it is a very broad aspect. When we see it is a broad aspect, means our agriculture is also included in this bioconservation. We are doing agriculture through which waste are being also generated. If we don't manage the waste properly, we will lose the biodiversity. The bioconservation will not be achieved. So our waste management technique can help in bioconservation. That in last 10 lectures about I have stating that what is the correct management practice, how it's this management waste management practice will flourish the flora and fauna, means conserving the biodiversity. So these are the methodologies how biodiversity is being conserved. So the biodiversity on the global level is being conserved by two ways. There are two methodologies, two ways through which it can be conserved. One is in situ conservation, another is ex situ conservation. In situ means it should be conserved where it occurs naturally. So we have to conserve the biodiversity, or we have to conserve the biological things at their place of origin or at their place of their living. For example, biosphere reserves. This our earth is also known as biosphere, means the earth's surface, the below part of the surface and the above part of our surface, that is including the environment. The whole thing, lives are available in whole thing. So the whole part is known as biosphere because lives are available. So some part is located where the diversity is maximum, and that part is located, identified, and it should be reserved. No other destructive activity should be done there. So this is known as in situ bioconservation through biosphere reserves. Next is the national park. So national park is also the part of the land which is developed by the nature itself. So that part is developed naturally. Some biodiversity are available in maximum. Lot of plant species are available, lot of animal species are available, and the environment or the atmosphere of that area is suitable for their flourishing. So that part is identified, and a national park has been developed for their living or for their flourishing. One example is Bandhavgarh National Park in Madhya Pradesh, which is developed as a tiger reserve. So probably you people have seen there. Next is wildlife sanctuaries. So some part of the land where the wildlife is present in the maximum amount, and the sanctuaries is being developed. So these wildlife sanctuaries are also being developed, and biodiversity is preserved in the place of origin itself. And sacred forest cause. Some forests are made reserve forest. For example, the Dehradun forest of Uttarakhand is reserved for the for the elephants. So that is a reserve forest for elephants. So no other activities are being allowed in that area. So this way the biodiversity, and there are not only elephants, though it is reserved for the elephants, but if elephants are living there, it means a lot of plants and lot of biodiversities in plant species or plant kingdom also available in that forest. So this way these four methodologies are helping to conserve the biodiversity in situ. In situ means we are conserving the biodiversity at a place where it is evolved. Next is ex situ conservation. Ex situ conservation of biodiversity, it means the biodiversity, if cannot be conserved at the place of origin itself, so it should be conserved away from their place of origin. It can be domesticated or it can be reared in the lab. So this is known as ex situ conservation. So one example of ex situ conservation in zoo. जू इस चिड़ियाघर या अजायब घर बोलते हैं हिंदी में. चिड़ियाघर बेसिकली जहाँ पे बर्ड स्पीसीज आर कंजर्व, But zoo means ajaib ghar. Zoo means animal, plants, and birds are all are conserved in that places. So ग्वालियर में भी एक जू है. There is a zoo in Gwalior in Phool Bagh. So you people can visit there and see that even lion, tigers, panthers, crocodiles, and different type of birds are conserved there. So why this is ex situ conservation? The zoo is ex situ conservation. Here you will find that several exotic species of the birds are available in Gwalior which are naturally not found in Gwalior. So this is ex situ. Some botanical gardens are being developed. Botanical gardens is basically for the plants species conservation. And when you conserve the lot of plant species at one place, definitely some birds and other insect species can also be conserved in that places. Automatically that will conserve. So botanical garden is to conserve the different plant species. So there are some plant species which are naturally not available at that place. So we can import it and grow it in our garden, and so this way the biodiversity can be conserved at a place where it is not being involved. So this is ex situ conservation. And the other three methods of ex situ conservation is the conserving them by detaching them from the plant and conserving them in a live situation in the laboratory. So this is also ex situ conservation. So seed or pollen banks are available. So several seeds are detached from the plants and it is stored at a cold temperature where it can be alive for a longer time. Cold temperature and lesser humidity. So it can be alive for the longer time. So this is ex situ conservation. Pollen banks are also available and pollens are being conserved. So pollen is a live thing. But pollen naturally, pollen is a live thing and pollen is a genetic material. So if pollen is genetic material and we have a live pollen, means we can use this pollen for generating the new generation. But it is a genetic material, live thing, and naturally it is produced for a shorter period of time. If it in a shorter period of time it will not be utilized, it will die. But nature produces lot of pollen, so some is utilized, some is waste, but all are dies after some time. But because some are utilized, so their continuation is maintaining. But if the situation is not favorable, the pollen will die and the environment or the ecosystem or the situation is not favorable, means the species will be lost after few years. So this live pollen can also be stored in a bank in a frozen condition. And nowadays this frozen pollen is a very popular thing. Even breeders are using this frozen pollen for evolving new varieties. And again the pollens are being stored in a frozen form in a pollen bank. Just like a pollen bank, there are gene bank also. So several species of the plants, their genes are isolated and being stored in a bank, and that can be utilized for the further improvement or for the further breeding program. So this is again the ex situ conservation. Some plant species can be stored through tissue culture for a longer time. The growing cell of the plant can be taken and it is converted into callus. This callus is stored for a longer time. When we want to use that plant for our purpose or for our benefit, again the callus can be converted to the plant through this tissue culture technology, and this species genetic diversity or the species diversity can be conserved out of the place where it is evolved. So that is ex-situ conservation. So there are two methodologies, two strategies through which bioconservation is being carried out throughout the world by these methods. So bioconservation through bioconversion. So first of all, we should understand what is bioconversion. See, bioconservation is totally different thing. Bioconversion is totally different thing. You should not confuse with bioconservation and bioconservation. Bioconservation and bioconversion. Bioconservation, to remove your confusion, I explained bioconservation a lot. Bioconservation is a broad aspect which is applied all over the world globally for all over the living things. So bioconservation is a separate branch of science, a very broad thing. Bioconversion is a small thing which helps in bioconservation. So bioconversion means, bio means involvement of biological system. So it is bio. Conversion means changing the form of a material from one form to the another form. So conversion is also known as transformation. If it is done by the biological agent, it is known as the biotransformation. It means bioconversion is also known as biotransformation. The conversion of organic materials such as plant or animal waste. These are the organic material. So plant waste is the organic material, animal waste is the organic material, or in all we can say that is the agricultural waste or biodegradable waste, organic waste. These all agricultural waste, that is organic material, it should be transformed from one form to the another usable form. Another product which is usable or beneficial for us, in that form it is converted or it is transformed. It is transformed through the biological process and through the biological agents. So biological agents are microbes, bacteria are working over it, or earthworms are working over it. So these biological agents, they work over it, they convert this organic material from one form to the another usable form. So definitely they will do the biological process in their body or in their mechanism, in their assimilation. So this is biotransformation. So this is bioconversion. Three different process of bioconversion is available. One is enzymatic hydrolysis. So this material, organic waste, can also be converted to the another form through enzymatic hydrolysis. It can also be converted through gas fermentation. And third is grub composting. This enzymatic hydrolysis process is suitable when our waste is coming from the one source only, means all the agricultural waste are of one kind only. So this hydrolysis process is simple. Otherwise, gas fermentation is suitable if the waste are coming from the different sources. So our feedstock means the agricultural waste. Feedstock means the process which is converting it. Waste is known as feedstock for that process. So feedstock is blend. Blend means it is a mixture of all kind of waste. So this gas fermentation process is suitable for the blend feedstock. And grub composting, grub matlab kachra. So all the waste are grub. So it can go for the composting. And composting is a very suitable process. It doesn't harm the environment and it converts our waste to the usable form. So this is a sustainable technology. This should be adopted at a wider level, and it is adopted at the wider level. So grub composting is a suitable technology or sustainable technology which is adopted at a wider level for converting the agricultural waste into the usable product. That is the compost, which is again used in agriculture. So this is one conversion. Through enzymatic hydrolysis, we can convert this agricultural waste into alcoholic products. So this I will explain in the next lecture. So how this bioconversion process is being carried out, or how the bioconversion process through different ways, what are the end product can be formed. So composting, vermicomposting, that or the digestive bioslurry, that one thing I have told you as introduction. This slide I am putting here, that the substrate means the agricultural waste which is to be converted into another form. So that waste for the process, the starting point whereby you are using that waste, the waste is known as substrate. So directly substrate can go for the fermentation, and through this fermentation lignocellulosic enzymes can be produced, or single cell protein can be produced. The single cell protein is utilized for human and animal nutrition, or lignocellulosic enzymes are utilized for the saccharification. This substrate can also undergo with some pre-treatment, or without any treatment it can undergo for the saccharification. For the saccharification, this lignocellulosic enzyme is required. So it is generated in this process. Saccharification means conversion of polysaccharide to disaccharide, and from disaccharide to monosaccharide. Then this monosaccharide can be utilized for the several purposes. One way is that the agricultural waste without any treatment can go for the animal feed, or this agricultural waste with some pre-treatment or after some primary processing, it can be used as the animal feed. So what are the use of the agricultural waste? When you remember my older lecture, I have told you that this agricultural waste can directly be used as animal feed, and this composting is the another composting, and vermicomposting is the another methods. So one is animal feed. One is that this substrate, after some pre-treatment, we can go for the phenolic secretion. So this phenolic compound can be obtained from this waste, and the benzene can be end product which can be obtained from the agricultural waste. Through this process, when saccharification, we find glucose, mannose and xylose. Through xylose we can convert it into xylitol or furfural. These are the end product, and the glucose which is found from the saccharification, this glucose again can go for the fermentation, and after the fermentation of glucose, food and chemical manufacturing industry can use it, this fermented glucose, for the making of other chemicals or other food material. This fermentation of glucose can yield single cell protein. SCP means single cell protein. So this fermentation of glucose is a bioconversion process, and this will generate so many useful things. That is single cell protein, which can be used for the human and animal nutrition. Alcohols can also be prepared from the fermentation of glucose. Methane gas, I told you methane is produced. Methane can also be used as fuel, or methane can be used in the petrochemicals industry. Several enzymes which can be used as a fuel can be obtained from the fermentation of glucose. Microbial polysaccharides can also be obtained from the fermentation of glucose, which can also be used for food and feed. some fine chemicals can also be extracted from the agricultural waste, and some antibiotics can also be extracted from the fermentation of glucose. So here you remember the management of agricultural waste, when in last about 10 lectures I am talking about. The improper management first I have explained, that is open yard dumping or burning crop residue. Their impact can also be studied. Another way, the correct methodologies of agricultural waste management. One method I have explained you, anaerobic decomposition, that is biogas production, which can be utilized for fuel purpose or energy generation purpose, and the remaining part is digested bioslurry, which is a very good organic fertilizer for our organic agriculture. That is from anaerobic decomposition. Aerobic decomposition is another process where the decomposed material, that is compost, is obtained, which is very good in our agriculture, very good organic manure for our agriculture. Third process which we discussed lastly, that is vermicomposting. So through vermicomposting, what we get vermicompost. So these methodologies of agricultural waste management and the end product and their use I have already explained you. So this bioconversion, these all are bioconversion, which I have already explained you. These all are bioconversion. But bioconversion of agricultural waste, this terminology is basically used for the extraction of alcohol or this methane, benzene or enzymes from the agricultural waste. So this process I will explain you in the next lecture. So 3 has already been, even 3, 4 has already been covered, that is burning and open yard dumping, that is covered, it is faulty. Aerobic decomposition, anaerobic decomposition and vermicomposting is over. Now in next lecture I will tell that how alcohol is being prepared from the agricultural waste. This is one part of agricultural waste management. But this is also bioconversion. But this bioconversion, alcohol production from it will not help the bioconservation. But the bioconversion, which I have already taught you, composting, vermicomposting and biogas production, this type of bioconversion will help us in bioconservation. So this is the pyramid which will tell you that this bioconversion of agricultural waste means conversion of agricultural waste into the usable form will help us in bioconservation also. And you can also correlate this with our additional lecture, that is conservation agriculture. So this should be the strategy, or this is the management hierarchy we should go for our agricultural waste management. Our first methodology should be to reduce the generation of agricultural waste. This is the most preferred option. Now you will see, you will tell us, you will ask me, if we want to reduce the generation of agricultural waste, it means we want to reduce our agriculture. No, it is not like that. Definitely, if we will do agriculture, waste will be generated. We should follow the agriculture practices so that agricultural waste generation is minimal. Now here you can remember my lecture of conservation agriculture, where we are telling that crop diversification should be there in the field. Cover crop should be grown. Land should also be covered most of the time. Zero tillage should be followed. Means these all are the practices which will reduce the this the one impact that it will reduce the generation of agriculture waste. There are several other impact of conservation agriculture, but one impact is that it will reduce, because crop rotation or crop diversification in the field means when one crop is over, it will generate the waste, but another crop is there. So the waste will remain in the field and it will be utilized in the field for the next crop, by the next crop, and next crop will give the yield. So you can minimize the generation of agriculture waste. So this is our first objective or most preferred option, that we should reduce the generation of agriculture waste. So generating less waste in everyday life. It is not only through agriculture. Even our kitchen waste is also regarded as agriculture waste. Kitchen waste means if we are cooking the food, definitely we are generating some agriculture waste also, some kitchen waste also. Suppose we are cooking food in a larger quantity which is not utilized and we have just dumped it. So that is extra generation of kitchen waste. So we should reduce it. Next, reuse it. If we have cooked extra food material in our kitchen, definitely some waste is totally waste. For example, your potato peel, it is waste. So that is generated. But after eating the family, the waste, the food material which is surplus, and if we throw it, means we are generating more waste. Rather than throwing it, we can donate it to the poor people so that it can be reused. For example, we are growing rice. Rice straw is being generated as the crop residue. Here we cannot reduce the generation of rice straw. So if we cannot be, this option is not available. If we are cultivating rice, and rice cultivation is necessary because rice is a staple food, so waste is generated as a rice straw. So what should be the next option where we should go for burning? No, we should not go for the burning. The next option is that we can reuse it. So waste, though waste is generated as a rice straw, but we can reuse this rice straw in our mushroom production unit, because this rice straw can act as a substrate for the mushroom production. So this means reuse. So the second preferred option is that we should go for the reuse of the agricultural waste. We can reuse our crop residue as a mulching. If we do the mulching, so what happens in reuse? We should do nothing, or we should not process the agricultural waste for the further use. As such, we can use it further. Rice straw if for mushroom or if for mulching, as such it can be used. And again you can recall the benefit of mulching or the fate of mulching, so that you can understand this mulching will help us. Then we can go for the recycling. Recycling is the third preferred option, because in reuse we have to do nothing. As such we can use, but for recycling we do some process with the agricultural waste to convert it into the new material, means turning material into a new substrate or turning the material into a new product. Means this agricultural waste can go for the biogas production. So the new material, that is biogas energy, is generated and the digested slurry is generated, and this digested slurry is a recycled material which can be used in our agriculture again. And the less preferred option is recovery. If reuse and recycling is not possible, we should do the recovery. For example, we have the agricultural waste. You know, I told you agricultural waste are rich in cellulose and hemicellulose, especially cotton stalks or sugarcane, part of sugarcane bagasse, or this cotton stalk, or this pruning material of horticulture. These agricultural waste are rich in cellulose and hemicellulose. Cellulose and hemicellulose are the raw material for paper industry, are the raw material for paper industry. So we cannot reduce it, the production of this agricultural waste, we cannot reuse it, we cannot recycle it. So the second least preferred option, that is the least preferred option, last but one, that we should at least extract cellulose and hemicellulose from the waste, so that we can use it for our paper industry, and then rest thing can be destroyed. So rather than destroying them, if some part can be recovered, for example, from the cotton stalk we can recover cellulose, so recover it. Why to waste it? Recover it. Recover the cellulose, that cellulose can be utilized for the other purpose. After the recovery, the leftover part can be thrown away. And if everything is not possible, definitely we should dispose it of. So by avoiding these things, reuse, recycling, recovery, by avoiding all these things, if we all the time we dispose it anywhere, you can see what are the problems can be created in the atmosphere. So disposal means just without doing anything. If you are generating the waste, without doing anything, you just throw it anywhere, throw it somewhere. So the area where the municipality waste is collected and dumped, the area is known as landfill, that I have told you already. So this landfilling should be, or disposal in landfilling, it should be adopted when there is no alternate. So this is the least preferred option, this is the most preferred option. Now you think, if we manage our agricultural waste properly, if we reduce its production through conservation agriculture, if we reuse it in conservation agriculture or in other use, if we recycle it, these are the good options of waste management. Not burn it, don't burn it. Use agricultural waste management through these options. This will help in bioconservation, because bioconservation means the conserving biological diversity, protecting the biological diversity. And every time I am telling you, when we are doing vermiculture, when we are doing decomposition, flora and fauna can be flourished. So this waste management practice can also improve the bioconservation. What should be our agricultural practice to help bioconservation? Actually, we are doing agriculture because of food security. Biodiversity is available in the world. If we do intensive agriculture only for the food security, biodiversity will be lost. So if we do nothing, we neither we neither think about the biodiversity, we neither think about the atmosphere, we neither think about the food. Everything is degraded. Land is degraded. Landscape means with the habitat, land is degraded. So there will be the loss of food security, there will be the loss of biodiversity. If we conserve the forest, all forests are conserved, high amount of biodiversity can be achieved. But there will be low amount of food security, because we are not doing agriculture, we are just conserving the forest only. if we do intensive agriculture for food security, as the Punjab and Haryana people are doing, only wheat is growing in the whole Punjab and Haryana, or only rice is growing in whole Punjab and Haryana. Food security is high, but biodiversity is low. So agroecological landscaping, this is the win-win situation. Here, if we do diversification, again remember my lecture of conservation agriculture. Crop diversification should be there, multiple cropping should be there, crop rotation should be there. So food security can also be achieved and biodiversity can also be achieved. So this is agroecological landscaping. This is the win-win situation. So rather doing intensive agriculture, we should do agroecological agriculture or diversified agriculture, so that food security and biodiversity both can be achieved. Waste management comes in this. Here waste generation will be less if we do this. If we play at this part, our waste management will be at this part basically. So definitely the biodiversity or the bioconservation can also be achieved, or bioconservation is a broad aspect, I told you. But our waste management will help in bioconservation this way, if we will play in this part. So this is the importance of waste management. Here better environment can be achieved. Pollution is reduced through the agriculture waste management. Energy can be conserved through the agricultural waste management, and biodiversity can be conserved through the agricultural waste management. Means bioconservation is achieved and it creates employment also. So here in today's lecture we have understood the correct methodologies of waste management. We have understood the importance of our correct waste management strategies in bioconservation also. We have understood the correct management practice of bioconservation. These two are the references where you can, if you read it, then you can understand this topic more. Thank you very much.